It's 2:00. I think it's time to get started. Welcome to the Mechanicsburg Mystery Bookshop's Zoom for this afternoon. We are so excited. I love the title. It's called Sweet But Deadly. And we have some sweet but deadly authors with us today. We have Marilyn Levinson, Heather Weidner. We have Jackie Layton, Sarah Burr, and unfortunately, Alice wasn't able to join us today. She has COVID. So I'm sorry she won't be with us, but we do have her books here. So I need to go over a couple little housekeeping details, and then I'm going to let the authors introduce themselves. So let me read these to you. This event is being recorded and will be uploaded onto our YouTube channel, MECH Mystery Books. So it's Mechanicsburg abbreviated, MEC Mystery Books. For those who couldn't participate today, but you can also listen to it again in case you missed something, or if you had to leave the room for 5 minutes. If you do not wish, this is the important one. If you do not wish to have your face as part of the video, please turn your video off or place something over your camera. Please keep your mic muted for the duration of this event. When the time comes for questions and answers, please type your questions in the chat box for the authors to review. And again, make sure you either cover your camera or turn your video off, because we do put this on YouTube. And so if you don't want to be out there, cover her up. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Heather, and she's going to take charge now. And thank you so much again for this afternoon for attending. We know you'll have a great time. Heather.
Hi. Thank you so much for having us. This is so much fun to hang out and talk about cozy mysteries. And she's already introduced the fabulous and talented panel for this afternoon. So I'd like each author to talk about their sleuth a little bit. Instead of really going into the introductions about yourself, if you'll just tell us about your sleuth. So Marilyn, would you like to get us started?
Yes, hi. I write the Haunted Library Mystery Series. And I'm Allison Brooke when I write that. So you know, that's my pseudonym. And my sleuth's name is Carrie Singleton. She works in a library that's about 300 years old, and it's on a green in Clover Ridge. And she is the head of programs and events at this library. She's about 30 years old, and she, in the 7th or 8th book, she's engaged. So that's my sleuth.
That's good. How about Jackie?
My sleuth is Indy Grace Scott. She lives in Hayward Beach, South Carolina. It's a fictional town, and she is the local dog walker. She's in her early 30s, has a younger brother and sister. Family is really important to her, and she's close to the people in her community. So but if you need your dog walked, Indy Grace is the one to call.
Sounds good. How about you, Sarah?
The sleuth that I am talking about today, I actually write a couple different mystery series, but I'm here talking about the Trending Topic Mysteries, which feature a social media influencer, Coco Klein, who has recently, the startup that she was a part of was bought out. And in her debut mystery adventure, she's returned home. She's starting up her own social media marketing company. And the clients, the new clients that she has are unfortunate enough to find a dead body in the back of their store. So she has to do some PR damage control and make sure that murder doesn't start trending for her hometown.
Oh, sounds good. And I write the Jules Keene Glamping Mysteries. I write multiple series too, but this is the one. She's an amateur sleuth. Her name is Jules Keene, and she spends most of her time trying to keep her business solvent. She refurbished vintage trailers and she's upscaled them for glamping, which is glamorous camping. And it's in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. She and her boyfriend, Jake, who's the hunky maintenance and security guy, added 3 houses to the resort's offering. And each one of those is themed for a writer. And she has a sidekick who helps her explore and sleuth, and it's Bijou, the Jack Russell Terrier. All right, ladies, all our main characters have a job that allows her to have some sort of involvement with a crime, whether it's intentionally or not. You may just have stumbled upon a body, like Sarah said. Tell us about your character's job. And I know you mentioned it earlier in the introduction, but how does her job help her with her sleuthing?
So for Coco, she kind of wears several different hats. Not only is she starting up her own social media business, but she also runs a very popular blog online. So she has this online persona that she has to keep up, but she also has to make sure that she is kind of keeping her online self separate from what's really going on in her personal life. And the fact that her clients are kind of put in the middle of this murder mystery, and she has to make sure that, you know, nothing bad happens to their store opening. Coco takes her abilities that she's learned on social media to really dive in to do her sleuthing online and kind of piece together suspects and her victim's life, all based on social media.
Jackie, you're next.
So Andy Grace, one good thing about her job as a dog walker is she has a lot of freedom. She has the freedom to schedule dog walking appointments, to where she can go question suspects. And actually, it was her job. She went to walk a dog, and that found her first dead body. So that's kind of how she began her sleuthing. Was a client was dead, and she wanted to figure out who had done it. So being a dog walker, she also knows a lot of people in the community. They trust her. She's lived there her entire life, and she can glean information from some of her clients. One is the pastor's wife, has 2 dogs who are out of control, but she always is able to get information from the pastor's wife, because so many people tell her stuff, and then she turns around and tells Andy Grace. So I think really her trustworthiness with people's animals, and she's lived there for so long, and then the flexibility of the hours of her job. She's not stuck in a store. She's able to be out and about. So I think all those help her with her solving murders.
Well, Carrie works in a library, and she has a secret agent, Evelyn Havers, who happens to be a ghost. Evelyn is a long-term, she lived in Clover Ridge many, many years, all her life, and she used to work in the library, and she knows a lot of what's going on in people's lives. And one of her assistants also is pretty knowledgeable, Trish, and even Trish's father. Sometimes Carrie gets him involved. What's more, her fiance is a investigator, and while Carrie doesn't make use of his knowledge, she makes use of his gal Friday, who, when she really has to go digging deep into people's backgrounds, she doesn't hesitate, and Dylan doesn't mind. She will help Carrie out. And of course, Carrie also goes on Facebook, and it's amazing what people can find out there. So that's really helpful to her. So she has many different ways of finding out many different things.
And my character, Jules, is a lot like Jackie's character. She lives and works at the resort. She's there 24/7. So as a small business owner, she has some staff, and that gives her a little bit of freedom to poke around, to do some investigating. She's not chained to a desk. And the resort also acts as a way to bring different people in, so they're vacationing there. So every 2-3 weeks, or unless there's a festival or something. So she gets a whole new crop of fun characters that we get to investigate. So true to cozy traditions, our sleuths are amateurs, meaning that they're not private investigators or police officers. And they aren't always privy to a lot of the information that law enforcement has. What are some skills or talents? And some of you mentioned the ability for them to talk to others and to trust and to know folks in their community. So what other skills and talents does your sleuth have that allows her to uncover clues and solve crimes? Who wants to go first?
I can jump in. So beyond, being able to really utilize technology to the fullest, Coco is able to use her local celebrity status that she has to kind of starstruck people into telling her what she wants to know. But she also has the aid of her best friends, Jasper and Charlotte, who are very in tune with what's going on in Central Shores, Delaware. Charlotte owns the local cafe, so she's always hearing the latest gossip. Jasper actually runs a culture magazine, so he has a lot of connections that he can pry for additional information. And then there is Coco's boyfriend, who is also a rising star at the local news station and can kind of help Coco dazzle people into giving him information. So she really, beyond using technology, she really knows how to kind of harness her friends and deploy them as needed so that they can track down the information that they're looking for.
Well, as I said, Carrie often does all kinds of research, both personally. She has different people who can help her, a ghost, as well as one of her assistants, and research. She does her own research, a lot of social. She goes on Facebook, etc., and Twitter, and finds out what's going on. And she also, sometimes Evelyn gives her jobs to do, and she finds she has to help people. And somehow by helping people who Evelyn decides she should help, she seems to find out more and more about what's going on in the current mystery that they need to solve.
So Andy Grace, when she was, the summer before she was going to start college, her parents were killed in a hit and run accident, and the police never caught the driver of the other vehicle. So that always bothered her, that person was never brought to justice. And she also had a younger brother and sister that she decided not to go to college. She went through everything to stay home and raise them. And so the community has always been around her, supported her, and she has really built up trust with the community. So I think that is another one of her, I wouldn't really say a talent, but it's a way that when she asks people, hey, did you see anything suspicious? They're willing to open up to her because they have watched her, do the right things through the years. So I think just a level of trust, not a skill necessarily, but she has trust in the community.
She's put that. My character is gregarious and smart too, and she just asks a lot of questions. So her people skills tend to work in her favor. She can talk herself in and out of a corner depending on what the situation is. And the dog in the story helps too, because sometimes if there are people that are a little standoffish or not interested in sharing something, the dog seems to be able to break the ice sometimes, and everybody wants to pet the dog. So that helps. Okay, we all write cozy mysteries that are light on violence and graphic details, but all of our stories deal with crime and justice. And without any spoilers, what is the most unusual murder weapon you've ever used in one of your books, and why did you choose it?
I would have to go with, so I'm actually working on book 2 in the Trending Topic Mysteries right now. It's due out next year. And I would say that the murder weapon for the crime is pretty fun. It's a corkscrew. So it's up close and personal. But because of what the corkscrew has engraved on it kind of leads Coco to, or leads the police to their first suspect. And Coco's like, whoa, I need to put a stop to this because, I can't have a friend accused of murder. So I think that or a teapot are my favorite murder weapons that I've had.
Very good.
Well, I can't think of anything really very different that I use in terms of weapons. Lots of my characters get they could get hit by a car. A lot of them get hit on the head. And there are occasional accidents, but nothing really very unusual, I must say.
So one of the victims in the upcoming Indie Grace mystery is found with a neon pink dog leash around his neck. So that I think would be my most unusual murder weapon.
I have two. I used a cast iron skillet in vintage trailers, and she conked someone on the head to subdue them with a skillet. And then in the new series that's coming out in January, the Mermaid Bay series, one of the victims is killed with she's strangled with a string of Christmas lights.
Ooh, very festive.
No, but when you're amateur, you have to use what's around, I guess.
And how apropos of the season.
Exactly. Book critics often say that the story's setting is key. Tell us about the setting in your series and why you chose it. How is it important to your story?
Well, my setting is very important because the library is one of the old buildings that's around the green. And I created the town, of course. There's no such town as Quaker Ridge in Connecticut, but I did base it on a town that I did drive through in Connecticut and spent some time there. And while I do create different sites in different places, I also include real towns and real places. I think we all do that to some extent. And what I love about this is that there's waterfront nearby. So I could have all kinds of drowning. I could have had that. Yes. But there's water and there's going out to inns in the countryside. But also it's the green is the center of town, and so many things take place on the green. They have festivals there, and the library itself has so many wonderful events that take place. So I just love that setting, and I'm so happy that I used it.
I think one of the reasons I fell in love with reading cozy mysteries in the first place was because of these small idyllic settings that you just want to visit. And so when I was creating Central Shores, Delaware, I really just kind of closed my eyes and pictured, okay, if I could live anywhere in the world, where would I live? What would it look like? What would the shops be? And just started building from there. And the reason why, and it will probably sound very silly, but the reason why I decided to set the series in Delaware was just because I had read a lot of cozy mystery novels, and nobody was ever in Delaware. And I was like, I feel like Delaware deserves its own little shout out. And because it's got such gorgeous coastline, it obviously made sense to have Central Shores be at a beach. And the main area of the town is known as the Strip to the locals, or the boardwalk for the people that have since moved to town in kind of the upscale area of the village. And it's just got a nice collection of shops. And I had such a fun time brainstorming the fun names. And it just it's a place that I wish that I could live all the time.
So Indie Grace lives in Hayward Beach, South Carolina, and in a community similar to where I live. And one thing that I think is special about it is the people are out and about 12 months a year. If it's wintertime, you just put on the little extra layers and bundle up. But people are always out walking, riding their bikes, walking their dogs, stopping and talking to each other, letting the dogs visit while the owners visit. And it's just, I felt like having this small town where everybody knows each other, and the warm weather. So they're all, coming across each other. people walk to the coffee shops here. They walk to the coffee shop in Hayward Beach. So I just felt like that was kind of conducive to putting Andy Grace in contact with more people on a daily basis.
I think, yeah, the small town, I think it's almost a character in itself. I mean, it's key to their lives and their stories.
Sure.
I grew up in Virginia. I was born in Virginia Beach, and we now live in Central Virginia. And Virginia has everything. It has history, culture, scenery. I mean, you can be in the mountains or the beach within 2 hours. You can be in Washington by 3. So it's very centrally located. But the Blue Ridge Mountains are gorgeous.
Ours is 422 square feet.
Never been on the East Coast. It's a beautiful area, especially during the fall and the spring. So the mountains became the perfect backdrop for the life at the resort. And my husband goes on these wild camping trips where they hang the food up in the trees so the bear doesn't get it. That's not my idea. That is not my. It has to have a bathroom and it has to have a door that locks. So I'm into the glamping.
I think a lot of our readers have said that they wish they lived in these towns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a lot of fun. Okay, so authors who write fiction often have to do a surprising amount of research for their stories. Tell us about any background research that you've done or something that was really interesting that made it into one of your novels. And who'd like to start?
I'll begin. Right now I'm writing about witches, the hunt of witches in the 1600s, and I seem to be doing a lot of research about that. And it's because there were some hangings in Connecticut before Salem, Massachusetts, but that is real research. But I could write a sentence, half a sentence, and I am immediately in Google. If I'm writing about a wedding, I have to see what's being served, what is being done, what are people wearing, what are the wedding colors. It's like, I can't believe what I'm researching. So I'm very often in Google, as much as I'm in my Word, on my document, I'm very often researching very, very small items. And then when the library was taking the building next door, and the building had to be excavated and rebuilt, I had to look into all that. And of course, that's where a dead body was found. But I think almost everything we write about needs to be researched somehow.
I would agree that there's a lot that you can create when you're writing fiction, but to keep it grounded in reality is really important. In one of my other series that I just had a book come out, I somehow ended up on the rare bird registry in New York. The book takes place in New York. And I was researching just like what types of birds would be in the area for the particular season that the book was taking place in, because it was in October. And I was like, well, would this bird even be here by this point in the year? So I ended up on the rare bird page, and there's this registry that's like a rare bird sighting page where people can post alerts to be like, hey, like there's a snowy owl located in Central Park, and all bird lovers can like flock to that particular area. And I thought it was such a cool tactic to bring people together that I ended up weaving it into my story as part of the mystery.
So I've also do a lot of research to be authentic, and I even keep secret Pinterest boards. So if I want to go back, like if I find a picture, like Marilyn said, of a wedding dress, and I want to go back and remember what it looked like, I've got it on my secret Pinterest board. But one of the things I've researched recently are the pill meals, and how that not only learning about the doctors writing these, fake unnecessary prescriptions, and the patients getting them, whether they're hooked on them or trying to sell the pills, but the farther reaching effects of how it affects family members, That was something that caused me to think quite a bit about everybody who's affected by pill mills and, how they need to be shut down. And I think the government's really cracked down on them. But so that was some good information I learned for a future book. That was, I used that in my upcoming book coming out for Andy Grace, just the effects of pill mills on others.
Oh, these are so cool. I love all the different ideas. I do a lot of research too. And sometimes it starts out as research and then I'm watching cat videos. So I have to be really careful to stay focused. But I'm always amazed at the wonderful people who are subject matter experts out there on social media. They are so willing to share information and explain things. I want to make sure I get stuff right. I don't want it to be off or somebody say, that's not real. That's not how it happens. So I'm always asking questions. I had some paranormal investigators in book 5 of this series, and it's called Teddy Bears and Ghostly Lairs. And there were some folks that I met at a Sisters in Crime presentation who are paranormal researchers, and they were asking all kinds of, providing all kinds of information, and they helped me with the types of tools they would use and what they would be looking for or listening for in an investigation. So that was really interesting. So I am such a fan of the internet. Everything is available there. I mean, literally any question that you possibly have, somebody's out there that will answer it.
And I might add also that so many of our fellow authors who we're in constant touch, they're so helpful because so many of us had different careers before we became writers.
And that is true too. I work in IT during the day, so I get a lot of IT questions. I'm a CK, which is a cop's kid. I grew up thinking that everybody talked about murder and mayhem at the dinner table. And I was shocked to learn in college that they didn't. People were horrified that we talk about murder at the table, but we do. Thanksgiving is always interesting. So what influences or experiences did you have in your life? And what made you want to write mysteries? We did really, truly talk about murder and mayhem and stupid crooks. And this was way before true crime was even popular. My dad was a police officer and he's retired now, but he's still my best law enforcement source. There's just things you don't want to Google, like, hey, Dad, what's a meth lab smell like? Or what caliber bullet will put this kind of hole in something? Or can I hide a body in that? Would it work? How long would it stay submerged? So yeah, he's always willing to answer my questions like that. And it's just normal at our house. My first job was to pick up the shell casings on the police range after he practiced. Also in the 70s, before paintball, he and I melted down my old crayons to make these dummy bullets for the SWAT team. I mean, what elementary kid knows how to make bullets? I know how to make bullets, life skill. But I was exposed to a lot of police practices and police lingo. And it was hell. I mean, I've always liked mysteries and it just made it more interesting. But you never want to watch a cop show with a police officer. He ruined chips for me. I mean, they're not even riding their motorcycles. They're being towed. So yeah, just don't watch cop shows with a cop. Ladies, what other experience do you have?
Who can top that, Heather?
I definitely didn't. I think the like biggest mystery that I had in my childhood that really like intrigued me into the more macabre aspect was we had just moved to our house in Maine, and my dad was out using a rototiller to create a garden for my mom, and he came in and he was holding a rusty gun, and he's like, "Oh, I found this buried in the backyard." And seeing that as a kid, I was like, oh my God, like somebody buried a gun in our backyard. Like, is there a body? Like, what's going on? And I was like reading Nancy Drew books. So I was just like so into like, what was this gun? And it just like in the back of my mind just like became this fascination that I had of like, why was there a gun buried in our backyard? And then, kind of fast forward 15 something years later. And I was talking to my parents about that, being like, did we ever like figure out like what, like, was there something in connection to this gun in our backyard? And my dad looked at me, he's like, Sarah, it was a toy gun. And it was like, thank goodness I was already writing mysteries by this time, because I feel like my world would have been just completely shattered. But I was just like, I cannot believe that I spent so much of my childhood and then into my adulthood thinking about, why was there a gun in our backyard? And it was fake.
That's too funny.
So just like you all, I started with Nancy Drew Mysteries. We had gone to visit my grandparents who lived on a farm. It was a rainy day. So I just was up in my mom's bedroom where she grew up and found a bookshelf. And there were 5 or 6 old Nancy Drew books. And so I just started reading one, and I was hooked from then on. There was also a series of books about 3 boys called The 3 Investigators. Mm-hmm. And I happened to have 3 friends, and we all loved to read mysteries. And we decided we were going to become the 4 investigators. And after school, we would get together and meet and try to come up with a mystery to solve. And we were so like thinking we were going to solve a mystery. We even made little business cards, the 4 investigators with our 4 names on it. But we never solved a mystery, but we had a lot of fun imagining we were going to.
Well, the closest I came to the police station was we had a summer home, and my father dropped me off at the library. And I guess I left the library and I couldn't find him. So somebody took me to the police station, and he found me there, and they had given me a lollipop or something. So I thought, oh, gee, this is really what they do. But other than that, my introduction to crime and mayhem and all that was through, Nancy Drew, and even more so Judy Bolton and what was her name? Belden. What was
Trixie Belden?
Trixie.
Right. And of course, I read Agatha Christie's and mysteries as I grew older. And I just loved mysteries. So I just started, I actually started writing children's books. They were my first books that were published. But then I began writing mysteries. And I love writing mysteries. They're fun.
They are. What is the oddest or funniest thing that a reader has said to you or written in a review?
So when I first got published, everybody said, do not read reviews, do not read reviews. And so that really kind of held me back to where I didn't read reviews, except for a panel today. So I found one, and a lady said, I find I need to care about the victim to be invested, but maybe that's okay if I'm not invested. I don't want to get upset. So that really made me think, because some of my victims have been, good people that everybody likes in the community, and not all of them are likable characters. So that has given me a lot to think about. In my future victims, are they going to be likable or not likable? I'm not sure, but I'm glad y'all asked me the question.
I like killing off the bad guys the most. That's my favorite. I would say I guess the funniest thing that I see readers post in reviews. So Coco has a boyfriend, and they've been together for 4 years. They've been living together for almost 2 years. And there's kind of a little subplot of Coco being like, are we ever going to get married? Is he ever going to propose? Kind of waiting and hoping for that proposal. And readers will put their feelings in the comments about being like, girl, like, if your boyfriend hasn't proposed to you after 4 years, like, drop him. And all of these like very critiquing relationships, like, I would never be with a man who didn't propose to me after 4 years. And me as the author, I'm sitting here and being like, you know what, my fiance didn't propose to me until 8 years after we've been dating. So it's like, I feel like these people are being a little harsh with their judgments on the relationship. But I always think it's really funny that they're so invested in the character and their life that they're like, girl, get yourself away from him.
Well, I had to think about this question because it's so true, though. People put their own values on what people, your characters should be doing. And along those lines, before I mention what I'm going to say is, when I do author takeovers, I ask my the people who were there what they don't like. And I was so surprised. So many of them said they don't like threesomes, romantic threesomes. I was very surprised. I'm just throwing that out. I'm just offering that. But the thing is, what I was surprised at was as I said, I based my town on a real town in Connecticut. But a lot of the library doings I based on my own library, which is Sachem on Long Island. And my very good friend Anne Marie was in charge of many of the activities, and she's retired now. So I got a complaint in a review, because like Jackie, I don't really read them very often. She said no library offers all of these things. Food programs, and because we have eating where the chef comes and prepares something, and we all have some. All these different shows and all these different performances and all these different classes. And I was laughing to myself because we do have all these. I mean, of course, I make some up, but so many of them we do have. And by the same token, I was also sad that not every library offers what my library offers. And I'm really grateful that, we're very lucky on Long Island that we do have, a lot that our libraries offer.
Mine was an event. One of the first books, my first short story that was published. We did Virginia Festival of the Book in Charlottesville, and it was a huge auditorium, and there was probably 200 people in there. And after the presentation, they would all come up to the table for the book signing. And this lady leaned over and she said, "Your lips disappeared." And I said, "Excuse me?" Is she trying to sell me makeup? Is she a stylist? What's going on here? The other panelists had really dark red lipstick on, so I guess they could see their mouths in the back. Mine, I licked the lipstick off. So I mean, it's like I got pants and shoes on. The lipstick just comes and goes. But I truly thought she was trying to sell me makeup. She said, "I like you. I like the book. You just don't have enough lipstick on." I'm like, "Okay. I'll work on it."
Oh, geez.
Okay. You could have dinner or tea with any of yours or anybody else's fictional sleuth. Who would you invite?
I mean, I would always have tea with Nancy Drew. Like, she is the moment. She is forever my idol. And yes, no one can ever top her.
Well, I would go with Miss Marple, because she's supposed to be so old, but she's really like 65, right? And she's very, very old. And I'm just so curious how she knows all these things about the people who live in her town. Mm-hmm. And she knits, which I do too.
So there's a lot I would enjoy meeting for dinner, but I thought about Elvira Meehan, one of Mary Higgins Clark's characters in the lottery winner, and she's in some of the other stories too, makes appearances. She just is so funny and down to earth. I don't know, she just cracks me up. So I thought she would be a lot of fun to meet.
I got going and I couldn't stop. So I was like, oh, Hercule Poirot and Sherlock Holmes, Nancy Drew. And then, of course, I had to say the Scooby-Doo gang, because my mystery love started with Nancy Drew and Scooby-Doo. I mean, it was like a gateway drug. It turned into Agatha Christie and everybody else. But
it'd be hard to eat food around Shaggy and Scooby, though, because they would just like take it from you.
That is true. That is true. But yeah, I think I've watched every Scooby-Doo that ever came out. But yeah. Okay, writers or readers too? What are you reading now?
I'm reading Laurie Robbins' Murder in the Third. I love her series because when I was a little girl, I was going to be a ballerina or a writer, and she was, and Laurie was both. So I am really very impressed.
And she's on the call too.
Yeah.
Very cool. Mm-hmm.
I'm reading A Wealth of Deception by Tris Esden. It's the second book in her Scandal Mountain Antiques mystery series about a Vermont antique and art dealer. So it's very atmospheric, and I'm very much enjoying it.
So I got this book, Christmas at the Mysterious Bookstore, this week from our local bookstore, and it's just different short stories by authors. A real bookstore, my understanding is, asked different authors each year to write a short story, and they would hand it out to their customers, and then they put them all into this book. So I thought that would be a fun Christmas read.
Oh, how fun, how fun. I realized, I love Michael Connelly. I flip back and forth between cozy mysteries, which I read mostly, and then suspense and thriller. But I realized with the Harry Bosch series, I hadn't read all of them. So I'm working my way through the series, and I've got 5 left. So I'm almost caught up to modern day. So I'm going to ask one more question and then leave some time for you all to ask any questions that you have. What's next for you and your sleuth?
Well, I'm finishing up my series, My Choice, because I feel the dramatic arc has completed, and with book number 8, and then which I'm writing right now, and then I'm going to start a new series, because unlike you, Heather and Sarah, I can only write one book at a time, although I am working on my children's series, so I guess that is another series. I guess.
I am, so the book 2 in the Trending Topic Mysteries will be out in February of 2023. And we're going to be finding Coco at the start of the summer. It's a couple months after her first mystery adventure, and she's recovering. Life is getting back to normal, or as normal as life can be when you have 2 million followers on Instagram. And she is just ready for a summer of fun. But that whole issue with a corkscrew being found in somebody will pose a problem.
So Andy Grace's 5th book should be coming out in the next couple of months, and she is solving more murders and getting closer to her wedding to Mark. So I'm excited as her family grows and just to see what all happens next for her.
I love cozy mysteries with weddings in them. That's like one of my favorite themes of the genre, or the sub theme for a cozy mystery is like, I love when there's a wedding involved.
So much can happen, right?
Mm-hmm. I know.
Well, mine ends with a wedding, and I already had a wedding, so.
Book 3 comes out in October of this series, the glamping series, and it's called Christmas Lights and Cat Bites. And I may have been watching The Tiger King at the beginning of the pandemic when I wrote that. But I have signed a contract for books 4, 5, and 6, so I'm really excited.
Awesome.
The series is going to continue. So what kind of questions do you have for us? You can either unmute or you can put it in the chat, whichever you prefer. If not, we can keep on talking.
Heather, I have a question.
Let me pop in just for a minute. Anyone, just a reminder, we have some folks who joined us late. This is being recorded. It will go on our YouTube station. So if you really don't want your actual face hanging out there, you might either want to block your camera or turn your video off. And that's all I had to say, just a reminder. Continue on.
I was going to ask Heather a question.
Sure.
Heather, do you use non-mystery or non-cozy beta readers for your books?
Friends and family. Typically, I like to have cozy readers because they understand the genre. I've had some others that were not, and they tried to make it a romance or a science fiction or a fantasy or something. So yeah, I typically do that, but every once in a while there's a coworker or a friend, somebody that wants to read it.
Thank you.
All right, Leah wants to know, best advice for managing multiple series at once. Sarah, do you get the characters in the wrong book?
You know, I actually have not had the issues that I thought I would have writing multiple series. And I think it's because each of my main characters is so different from one another. Coco is like a super extrovert. Hazel in my Glenmire Whim mysteries is a very introverted. So they're never going to like have the same approach to a situation. And then my Court of Mystery series takes place in like a medieval fantasy realm. So it's really easy to keep that world in that world. But keeping everything straight and remembering, I think that the issue that I have the most is like, what have I written in each of my prior books that can help me develop what's going on in the current manuscript, and keeping things consistent. Because like if a minor character had blue eyes in one book, but then in the next one I'm writing and I have them with brown eyes, and it's like, ooh, there are ways to manage those inconsistencies by just being very detailed, having like a character list, and I do timelines for all of my books as well as book maps so that I can kind of see where everything is and everything has its place.
I do the same thing. I have this giant spreadsheet, and if it's a series, yeah, all the series are on there, because you're right. You don't want the hair color and the eye color changing and the names changing and things like that. What tools do you write in? Anybody use anything other than Word?
I don't. But I will. But that said, I learned to keep a list of and along with what you was just saying, Sarah, I keep a list of every book, and the characters' names and places that I mention. And I keep track of every day, because one book I wasn't careful about, Tuesday following Monday and not Thursday. Because when you come to a weekend, it can really screw things up.
That can, yeah. I like to do my outlines. I do a plot by day where I have every day that is going to be featured in the book. I have a synopsis of what is going to happen, what the sleuth needs to find during that particular day to kind of further the mystery along, as well as any events that need to take place or people that they need to speak with. So I kind of keep my days of the week in order, but I also keep my timeframes very short, because I would get so lost if my mystery spanned for more than like 2 weeks. I've read some cozy mysteries that have gone for like several, like almost like 2 months at a time. I was like, how did they keep the timeline straight in this? So I'm a big believer of like, let's have it very condensed and all at once.
I'm with you, Sarah, on that. 2 to 3 weeks the most is really the spread of one book. Yeah. I mean, how many murders can you have? Well, I guess in a few months later, there's going to be more murders, so you better keep them together.
Yeah.
Somebody asked about, Marianne asked about tools. Does anybody use Scrivener or any of the tools? I just use Microsoft Word. Jackie?
I use Scrivener to keep my notes in on characters and setting. And already mentioned, I have secret Pinterest boards for things like vehicles or outfits, for details that I need to visually see. But Scrivener, I keep my notes and I write in Word.
Lori asks, so many of you have really interesting secondary characters. Have you ever had to struggle against them taking over?
Yes. Coco's best friend, Jasper, he could be a lead in his own right. And so I really like to pair the two of them together in scenes, and they make a good dynamic duo. But he definitely is, I think, more witty and quippy than Coco is. So he becomes kind of a fan favorite just because he's able to like make people laugh a lot more.
My very first series, it was a private eye, it wasn't a cozy. And I had a sleazy strip club owner, and he was just vile. Anything that was just awful and rude and disgusting, it was him. And he was only supposed to be in book one, but everybody liked him. For some reason, he was lovable, and he would do cat sitting for his neighbor, so he wasn't that horrible. But he ended up in every book, and it was because the fans wanted him back. And I'm like, but he was supposed to be just there for a minute. But he stayed.
Well, I find, oh, I'm sorry, Heather.
No, go ahead.
Carrie's best friend, Angela, I don't feel that she takes over, but one book is dedicated to her family and her wedding, and the murder centers around her family. And she plays a big part in the book. She's her confidant, and in that sense, but I don't feel that she takes over, but she's an important character.
And Heather wants to know, when you have so many ideas tossing around, how do you narrow the direction of the book?
I like to cut characters out. That's where I think struggle the most, where I want to have everybody that the reader has ever met in a certain book, because it's like, oh, like it's a nice reunion with all of your old friends. But there are some characters, and this is actually the manuscript that I'm working on right now. I just had too many people involved, and it was too confusing to keep the guests in order and to keep, the group of friends together. I was like, okay, I got to whittle this down and make sure that, I can keep it focused on the mystery rather than explaining who all these people are. So I think, making sure that you have the core group of people.
Oops.
These two elements often play a role, and in the end they join, and therefore there's some sort of completion for me anyway. And of course, this involves murders and different situations. And in one book, it was particularly difficult, but I was very proud of myself that it did work out, and it didn't look contrived. So I don't know where I got that idea of getting two different main themes, but I just did. That seems to be what I do. I guess other people just have, minor, they have secondary themes running through. And I also have themes going on. I think we all do. Whatever's you're really interested in now. And social issues come into our books. So much does come into cozy mysteries. They may not hit you over the head, but they come in a very personal and cozy way. So really.
Excuse me, I've got allergies. It's crazy today. For Heather, who is your go-to person to review your male characters, their responses and their dialogue? My husband is the first. He usually comes behind me and no, that's not what a guy would say. That's not what a guy would do. I also work in IT, so it's pretty much a male-dominated world. So I get a lot of dialogue just listening to them, especially now that they're getting younger. We get some 20-year-olds in there now, and it's a whole different dialogue and a whole different, it's almost a whole different lexicon of what they're saying. So it's fun. Let's see. Out of all your characters, who's your favorite and why?
That's tricky. I have favorites, I guess, in each of the different series that I write, because I don't think I could whittle it down to just one person. I really love writing Jasper in the Trending Topic Mysteries, just because he's this larger than life character, and he is a conglomerate of so many people in my life that I have met. And he's just somebody that I'd always want to have an adventure with. And then in my Glenmeyer Wim mysteries, I would say that Hazel's Aunt Poppy is my favorite, just because she's bubbly and bright and kind of effervescent and kind of everything that I wish that I could be. And in my Court of Mystery series, I would say that the captain of the Ducal Guard is my favorite.
Well, I have many favorites, and one of them is Carrie's father, who starts out, he was a thief, and you do see how he changes over the books. And I really love it because he ends up being a helicopter dad, which is really funny when he was gone most of her growing up years. I mean, she always loved him, but he's turning into a helicopter dad, which I get a kick out of seeing him go straight.
Well, I would say Indy Grace is my favorite character. I would enjoy hanging out with her, helping her walk her dogs. I enjoy writing her, but I could see her being a friend and somebody like her being a good friend in real life.
And I like the characters that, like Sarah said, that I can have fun with. They may not be my personality, but I can have the snarky character, or I can have the person that has no filter and says everything, or sometimes it's nice to have an alter ego.
I agree with that. It's nice to live vicariously through our characters and just be like, I could never act like this in a situation, but I'm glad that I could write somebody who could act like this.
I think you're right, Sarah, that we get a chance to express our different selves. Yes.
Jackie, they want to know if that's a loom on your top shelf.
It is a loom. My grandmother, Lutz, was a weaver, and she had all sizes of looms, even the stand-up where you would walk and sit on a bench and weave. And she taught me how to weave as a child, and that is one of the little looms that I got to keep for myself.
I have multiples. This is Marianne. I have multiple looms, which keep me from writing as much as I should.
Okay.
That's what I've loved about Zoom. I love looking at people's bookshelves and what's on their bookshelf and their reading and what books they have.
Or those of us who live in a tiny apartment and have to block, because it's like, here's my entire life behind me.
Well, that did get me caught at work because my work computer is over here and it faces my whiteboard, and I plot murders. And we were having a staff meeting one day, and one of my staff said, "Does that say bludgeon?" Yeah, I think I need to blur my background now.
You don't want to give away too many spoilers.
I think I scare them sometimes, though. I really do.
Maybe they're worrying. They're beginning to worry.
They might be, because they're always like, "You know how to get rid of bodies." Yeah, you know how to poison people. And I'm like, well, only on paper.
The having the whiteboard is can be very dangerous, because if you do have somebody in visiting, I have one, and I had the whole plot of a book mapped out, and I had someone over and they were reading it and they're like, "Oh, well, now your entire book is spoiled for me, like thanks." I was like, sorry, but it happens.
What does Rosie say? Here's a question. Are you pressured to have your main character have a love interest? Do your readers ask that your characters have romantic adventures?
I found that readers, at least, are increasingly less interested in the romantic aspect and more of the actual mystery itself. So I try not to focus too much on the romance. And if it were up to me, I'd just be like, hey, these guys are together and everything's great. Like, let's go solve crimes. But there is kind of that editorial standpoint where it's like, we need to have a little bit of drama going on in the background. So I definitely can kind of feel that, not pressure per se, but maybe just like, in order to appease as many people as possible, that you want to have a little bit of that romantic intrigue bubbling in the background.
Well, I like to have a romantic element in the background. And I remember one book, somebody complained there wasn't enough. So you never can please everyone with every book. And getting back to the many characters, Sarah, that you said you had to get rid of, sometimes I feel bad that I can't our characters grow, the number of our characters grow, and we just can't give every character that same amount of space in every book, right? Because there are different focuses. So I remember in the after Angela got married, the next book, she wasn't in it very much. And I felt kind of bad about it, but other things took over.
And then you have your readers that have grown accustomed, and they're like, where is Angela in this book? And, that there's, trying to figure out like, okay, giving like little glimpses of folks around the town can sometimes like be like the little breadcrumb that the audience will appreciate, to be like, oh, okay, like they're doing great. Awesome. Because it's really hard to juggle everybody, especially as your characters like learning and meeting new people in town.
Once in a while, my editor will say, she likes little Tacy, she's the only other person who can see Evelyn. Oh, we need to see more of Tacy. Well, when is she going out with her cousins? I'm so focused on what's going on with all these other characters, and then you sometimes you're reminded to do just what you said, to bring in a little bit of the other characters, because this is really what readers love. They love the sense of family, of seeing old friends, of seeing people who they've grown used to.
For sure.
I think we got to all the questions. Did we miss anything? Anybody have anything else?
I'll pop in as the bookstore. I have to tell you, we have 2 cozy book discussion groups. We also have our Bloody Wednesday that reads anything and all kinds. But the Bloody Wednesday group and the 2 cozy mystery groups will say right out that book had too much romance. If I wanted to read a romance, I would read a romance and not a mystery. They don't mind a little bit in there, but they really want a good solid mystery. And if there's a little romance in there, okay, fine.
Those are the ones I like to read too.
Me too. I think we answered all. Whoops. Yes, thank y'all so very much. And Deb, thank you so much for hosting us.
Thank you.
Oh,
thank you.
Delightful.
Thank you so much, ladies. I really think it's been a fun afternoon. You got lots of questions, which is great. I always love it when you get lots of questions. And you had lots of good information. So it is 2 minutes after 3, and we do try to keep these within our timeline. So I thank you so much again. And thank you folks all for joining with us this afternoon. Without you all, I wouldn't have a bookstore. So thank you very, very much. And you guys all have a great afternoon.
Thank
you, everyone. It was nice to meet you all.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Good to see you all. And Heather, thank you for arranging everything.
Oh, Deb is wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. We just.
Oh dear, I couldn't have done it without you.
Oh,